One of the skills that we are working on in guided reading, especially when we get to the higher step levels like steps 7, 8, 9, and all the way up through 12, that our Kipsters have to be able to do in order to pass their tests, is to complete something we call a deep retell. Now, the majority of our guided reading group has shown mastery of this skill in previous step rounds, which is really exciting. However, it's always a good skill to continue practicing. A deep retell can often take a lot of time, so it's not something that I hit daily in guided reading, given that their primary skill for most of the kiddos in my group this round is their written comprehension or their oral comprehension. However, I do not want them to miss out on the important practice of a retell. One very helpful thing that you can do with your Kipsters at home with the books that they're getting from me over the weekend is after they read it, after they answer the questions, or potentially even before, have them give you a retell. So the way that I start this out with Kipsters is after they read the book, I tell them, you're gonna pretend that I've never read this book before, and I come up to you and I'm like, oh wow, you read I'm the Guest? Tell me about it. I need a retell. I've never read that book before and I want to know all about it. And that's kind of how I begin the retell. So the key with the retell is to make sure that it's not a reread. What you don't want your Kipster doing is opening up and literally saying every word to you in the book. You want them to be able to retell the critical events from the stories, all of the main characters, important things that happened, details, feelings, incidents in the story that actually affected the plot in a significant way. And then you want to make sure that they're telling that in order. So one way that I always support a Kipster in doing that and strongly encourage them to do is have the book in front of you. You might remember the gist of the story, but a deep retell does need to include detail. So while it's not a reread every single word, it's also not a very, very brief summary. So I can't say something like, this book is called I'm the Guest, and it was about these two girls, and they had some problems when one of the girls came over to the other girl's house. This is too general of a summary, and it's not a retell, and it doesn't give me any critical details from the story. I wanted to model for you all what a deep retell should look like. I realized, though, I should read you the story first so that you actually know what's happening. This video will be a little long. I apologize for the length, but if you have the time, I think it'll be meaningful for you to hear what this process looks like so you can push your Kipsters with making sure that they have these retell skills really solidified, and that's not something that holds them back later. So the book that I'm going to do this with is called I'm the Guest. It's a book that might look familiar to you, that you might have seen come home with your Kipster last weekend. So I'm going to, as quickly as I can, reread the story and then show you what a retell should look like. Josie was having Cece over to play for the first time. Remember that you are the hostess, said Josie's mom. You want to make sure your guest feels at home. The doorbell rang and Josie ran to answer it. Before she reached the front door, though, Cece burst through, sniffing. Do I smell cake? Cece asked, running toward the kitchen. Cece opened the oven door to look at the cake inside. I'll come back when it's ready, Cece said. Actually, Josie said, the cake is for my dad's birthday. Where's your room? Cece asked. Let's play outside first, Josie said. I want to show you my new swing. I'm the guest, Cece said. Okay, Josie sighed. In Josie's bedroom, Cece yanked the dollhouse from its corner to the center of the rug. Doll furniture went flying into every corner of Josie's room. They played dolls for a long time until Cece spotted the chest of dress-up clothes in Josie's closet. I call the pink princess gown, Cece cried. The pink princess gown was Josie's favorite. As Cece squeezed into it, Josie heard the dress rip. I don't think it fits you, she said. Cece glared at her over her shoulder. That's not a polite thing to say, she said. Besides, I'm the guest. Cece walked out of Josie's bedroom and back to the kitchen. She stared at the cake, cooling now, on a wire rack. Is it ready? Cece asked. Can we have some for a snack? How about some cookies instead? Josie asked. My mom makes great cookies. Cece opened the freezer door. Have you got any ice cream? She asked. She turned and smiled at Josie. I am the guest. Apologize, my lights went off. We're saving the ice cream to go with the cake, Josie said, pushing shut the freezer door. Cece drifted out of the kitchen in Josie's pink princess gown, singing to herself. She sang, I'm the guest, all the way to the bathroom. "Your mom won't mind if we try on her makeup," she whispered, "because I'm the guest." Josie watched nervously while Cece poked through drawers. She found some red lipstick and put it on. Then she drew red lipstick hearts on the mirror and started laughing. "Stop that," Josie whispered to Cece. "I am the guest," Cece hissed and left the bathroom. On the way through the kitchen, she stopped at the birthday cake and tore off a big chunk. Josie couldn't take it anymore. "I don't care if you're the guest," she shouted. "It's my dad's birthday, and that's more important than any guest." Cece stared at her, licking crumbs from her fingers. "What do you mean?" she asked. Someone knocked on the front door. It was Cece's dad, come to fetch her. Josie and her mom stood on their front porch, waving as Cece was driven away. "Well," asked Josie's mom, "how was it being the hostess?" "I would like being the hostess," Josie said, "if I had a better guest." Josie's mom smiled and said, "Some guests behave like monsters." "I can believe it," Josie said. So this obviously is the entire text of the story, which I wanted you to read so that the retell would have some meaning, or I wanted you to hear rather, so the retell would have some meaning. What you would not want your kipsters to do would be to reread the entire story word for word. However, when it's time for them to retell, they should be using the book as a guide. So if I were to do a retell of this story, it might start something like, this book is called I'm the Guest, and it's about this little girl named Josie, and she was having a friend over to play for the very first time. Her friend's name was Cece, and her mom reminded Josie that she was a hostess and it was important to make her guests feel at home. When Cece came over, she rang the doorbell, but when Josie answered the door, Cece just busted into the house, and she smelled cake, so she ran straight for the kitchen. She'd opened up the oven in Josie's house and then decided she'd come back when the cake was ready. And I think that Josie was feeling pretty bad because the cake was actually for Josie's dad's birthday. Then Cece was being really rude, and she just kind of pushed past Josie and went to find her room to go play. But Josie wanted Cece to go outside instead and see her new swing set, except Cece didn't listen, and she just kept saying that she was the guest, and it was kind of like she thought she could do whatever she wanted. So they ended up going to Josie's bedroom, and Cece kept being rude. She grabbed Josie's dollhouse away from her, and then all of the toys actually went flying all over the room, and it made this huge mess. And then when Cece got bored of that, she saw Josie's dress-up clothes and wanted to go play dress-up with her. And she took Josie's favorite pink princess gown and she put it on. And I think it made Josie really upset because Cece ended up ripping the pink princess gown because it was too small for her. And then when Josie tried to make a comment about that, Cece got upset with her and told her she was being rude, and then she kept saying she was the guest. After they left Josie's bedroom, they went back to the kitchen because remember from the earlier in the story, Cece had really wanted some of the cake that was for Josie's dad's birthday. And she was asking Josie if they could have some for a snack, but Josie decided to offer her some cookies instead because she really didn't want her to eat her dad's birthday cake. But Cece didn't care, so she just opened up their freezer to see if they had ice cream. And she just kept repeating that she was the guest and she was the guest over and over. Josie didn't want Cece to have the ice cream though because the ice cream was supposed to go with her dad's birthday cake for his birthday. So Cece decided to leave the kitchen and she was still wearing that pink princess gown. And then she went to the bathroom and she started putting on Josie's mom's makeup, and she said that she could because she was the guest. Josie got really nervous, and I think it might have been because she didn't want Cece in her mom's makeup. And she kept telling her to stop, but Cece just kept getting angry and repeating that she was the guest. And then she got so mad that she ran into the kitchen and she actually tore a big chunk of cake out of Josie's dad's birthday cake. Once that happened, Josie blew up. She got so angry and told Cece that she couldn't take it anymore and that it was more important for her to have a good birthday for her dad than for her to have to be a good hostess for a guest. And Cece did not really seem to care, but luckily right then someone knocked on the front door and it turned out to be Cece's dad who was there to pick her up because it was time to go home. And after she left, Josie's mom asked her how she felt being a hostess, and Josie said she wouldn't have minded, she just wished that she'd had a better guest. And at the end of the story, Josie's mom told her that sometimes having guests over, sometimes those guests can be like monsters, and Josie agreed. And that was what I'm the Guest is all about. So as you'll see, I did take my time with my retell, and I actually retold the story in quite a bit of detail. I paraphrased parts of the story, but I made sure to include everything. I used the book to help me. And we want our Kipsters to feel free to rely on the book to check the pages to make sure they don't miss important words or events that would be useful in a retell. I also did add in some of my own thoughts, like the character did this and I think it was because they were feeling this, or probably after this happened they thought this. And it's absolutely okay for Kipsters to throw in bits like that, because in the process of the retell it shows us that they're actually understanding what's happening in the story. I know this process is a little bit involved and it does take some time, but it's very valuable because as our Kipsters go on to 2nd and 3rd grade, a retell is one of the best ways that they can demonstrate to us and their peers and people in the world that they might interact with that they have a deep understanding of a story. It's also a very fun activity actually to be able to do with your Kipster after they read. It gives them a sense of empowerment when they know about a story and they can share this with someone else. So over the weekends as you're reading the books and working on comprehension, it would be awesome if you could also throw in maybe 5 minutes or so to give your Kipster the opportunity to do a deep retell with you. As always, feel free to dojo me, text me, or call me if you have any questions. Our step window starts May 13th, and we are working hard as ever on our written comprehension right now in class, but hopefully this extra practice with retell with you guys at home and the little extra they're getting here with me when we can spare a couple minutes to get into those retell bits in class will keep us cruising to achieve these next few step levels. I hope you all have a great night. Thank you for your time to watch this video, and as always, let me know if you have any questions.